My topic is on environmental management for sustainable ecotourism. And the outline of my presentation is as follows. Ito. First, we have to define the tourism. Next is the environmental impacts of tourism and sustainable tourism and related concept. And then the corresponding environmental management and, of course, the summary. The tourism as defined by the World Tourism Organization is more generally in terms of which go beyond the common perception of tourism as being limited to holiday activity only, as people traveling to and staying in places outside their usual environment for not more than one consecutive year for leisure and not less than 24-hour business and other purposes. Tourism can be domestic or within the traveler's own country, or international tourism has both incoming and outgoing implication on countries' balance of payments. The impacts of tourism and sustainability can be categorized into two. One is the benefits, and the other one is the cost. As tourism move into the 21st century, the enterprises have to make environment a priority because tourism now is the world's largest industry. The environment is taking center stage in tourism development. Tourism is not only a powerful economic force, but a factor in the physical environment as well. Any form of individual development brings impact upon the physical environment in which it takes place. In view of the fact that tourists have to visit the places of production in order to consume the output, it is inevitable that tourism activity associated with environmental impacts. The highly polarized nature of development also generates intense environmental problems. This reduces the quality of life for local as well as for tourists, and ultimately may threaten the viability of tourist industry itself. The depletion of natural resources can result in water shortages, create imbalances, and the likes. Enumerated in this slide are the benefits with the impact of tourism and its sustainability could bring up conservation of natural areas and wildlife. It could reevaluate ecological values by the local population and authorities as a result of tourism interest, increasing awareness of the environment and nature in general among tourists, because nabibigyan po natin sila ng nare-realize nila, na-appreciate, and then na-educate on the aspect of environment. Rehabilitation and often also transformation of old buildings sites into new facilities, introduction and planning and management to make it more sustainable, and tourism may be less damaging to nature compared to alternative economic sectors such as agriculture and forestry. However, there are costs to the environment, specifically the loss of aesthetic and cultural value, noise disturbance, definitely the generation of waste, deforestation for building accommodation or to obtain firewood or access road to make the some interesting places accessible, pollution of water because of contamination as well as air, disturbance of ecosystem, disruption of animal breeding patterns and habitats because of the intrusion of human activity in the yung dating environment na talagang tahimik. Destruction of beaches, dunes, coral reefs, and protected areas through trampling and or the use of motorized vehicle, change of landscape from permanent environmental restructuring, seasonal effects on pollution densities and structures, and conflict over use of resources. Nagkakaroon na ng competition on the use of resources and land uses. So what is sustainable tourism? Tourism which leads to management of all resources in such a way that economic, social, aesthetic needs can be filled while maintaining cultural integrity, essential ecological process, biological diversity, and life support system. Parang minsan isipin natin napakahirap, no? Sustainable tourism entails adequate utilization and management of resources to achieve economic, social, and cultural needs while maintaining the, as I've said, the social, cultural integrity and ecological processes. Therefore, modern tourism, which with its strengths and characteristics, cannot be promoted without considering the environmental management as the main component of the economic aspect of tourism. Kasi hindi siya magiging sustainable if while we enjoy the scenery, the environment, but without considering the environmental management to make it more long-lasting or to make it more sustainable. So there are ways on how to really provide environmental management in order to balance the economic aspect of the industry as well as the environmental preservation and conservation and protection. One of which is the carrying capacity and ecosystems accounting. Basically, this is knowing the extent of the natural resources and its value. So with high regard and consideration on the value of the natural resources and its extent. Dahil without sustaining the integrity of natural resources, definitely tourism activities will also cannot be sustainable. So ecosystem accounting. First, we define what are the different forms or kinds of ecosystem. As in different areas, may mga iba't iba pong ecosystem niyan. And some sub-ecosystem. Like for example, in terrestrial ecosystem, there are subalpine forests, mossy forest, mountain forest or upper and lower, pine forest, semi-deciduous forest, lowland evergreen forest, forest over limestone or the karst, forest over ultra basic soil, forest over ultramatic rocks, grassland, beach forest, and then there's also the freshwater ecosystem. Kung mapapunan ninyo, itong mga ecosystem ay may iba't ibang character from ridge to reef. Merong brackish estuarine ecosystem, saltwater and marine ecosystem. And this ecosystem is a dynamic complex of plant, animals, and microorganism communities and their non-living environment interacting as a functional unit. Kung hindi natin ito na-disturb, yun yung mananatiling functional unit dun sa isang ecosystem. But dahil nga sa tourism activity, there's an influx of human activity in a certain ecosystem. Definitely, nagkakaroon po ng impact yon dun sa both sa plants, animals, sa flora and fauna, and even microorganism communities and then in their non-living environment in that particular ecosystem. Within the context of ecosystem accounting, there are two ways to appreciate it and to assess it. One is the key spatial properties, the extent, meaning the size or area, the configuration, the arrangement and organization, whether it's a landscape or seascape, mountain regions or coastal areas, climate and associated seasonal patterns. and also its functional properties, whether it's a biotic component, meaning mineral, soil, air, sunshine, and water, biotic components, meaning the flora, fauna, or the living things. And then the structure, the trophic layer within the ecosystem, the processes, and the function or nutrient cycling and primary productivity. This is how to really assess the function of an ecosystem. So these ecosystems are assets. They are contiguous spaces of specific ecosystem type characterized by a distinct set of biotic and abiotic components and their interaction. So yeah, if you can see in this, so this is what I mean by from ridge to reef, up there in the ridge are the closed forest, and then going down to open forest, the brush and shrub, grassland, open barren, then inland water or the freshwater ecosystem, and then woody perennials, then the agricultural ecosystem, swamp areas, and then mangrove, coastal, and then beach areas, and then under the sea is the seagrass meadows and the coral reefs. So may interaction po yan. Kaya po in terms of sustainable development plans, it's normally the framework for sustainable development is from ridge to reef. So various ecosystem characteristics and processes, as well as the ecosystem type, has ecosystem type, the extent, and the condition and the location of the asset. And then supply ecosystem services either from a single ecosystem asset or by multiple ecosystem assets operating collectively. Remember that the ecosystem services is not solely for tourism. So much of the services cater to the different needs of the population. So meaning there are competitions for the use of that ecosystem. The needs of the household, the businesses, the governments, and the industry. So ecosystem services are the contribution of ecosystem to the benefits that are used in economic and other human activity. Tourism is only one. So it represents also the final output of ecosystem before interaction with the economy. So all ecosystem services reflect underlying ecosystem characteristics and processes such as nutrient cycling, photosynthesis, or canopy cover. This is just to show you the different ecosystem services. There are three: provisioning, meaning the needs of the population, from food to energy to water. The cultural services, meaning from recreation, the national heritage, the symbolic value, the science and education, and the regulating services, because the ecosystem has as an impact for coastal protection, for the air quality regulation, for soil fertility, for carbon sequestration, soil erosion, pollination, for water shortage, disease control, pest and disease control, prevention of heat islands, especially now that we are experiencing climate changes, and the mediation of noise, wind, and visual impacts. So these are the regulating services of the ecosystem. So yun po, this slide just show you how this ecosystem in its services. And then for cultural services, dito po pumapasok yung non-material benefits obtained from the ecosystem. So yung recreation, ecotourism, spiritual and religious values, and ethical and existing values. So from cultural services. So dito po pumapasok yung ating tourism. So therefore, pinipresent po namin ito para mai-contextualize natin ano ba talaga yung sustainable tourism. From this context, makikita po natin kung ano yung halaga ng isang sustainable tourism. So these are just some of the simplified process of ecosystem accounting, from the identification of ecosystem up to the development of monetary accounts of ecosystem services. But again, another important thing for a sustainable tourism is the carrying capacity. So alam din naman po natin na for every area there are only limited and capacity to absorb, ano? Kaya din po pumapasok yung carrying capacity. We had experienced Boracay dahil sa hindi natin na pag-aralan kaagad yung carrying capacity, kaya yung pagtatayo ng mga infrastructure sa loob ng Boracay Island talagang nag-go beyond na doon sa carrying capacity. In carrying capacity is the ability of the system to support an activity or feature of at a given level. Number of people at a certain time at a certain area for a specific size or dimension of that area. The number of structure and infrastructure that can be supported by a particular ecosystem or environment. This also refers to the maximum number of individuals, visitors that could be accommodated without affecting the state of the environment, the level of satisfaction of visitor, and the sociocultural norms of the local community. Kasi kapag talagang nalampasan natin yung carrying capacity, ang laki ng impact. Nakikipag-compete na tayo doon sa iba't ibang ecosystem services na kailangan ng community, and also yung capacity rin of the environment to offset the impact of the human activity brought about by tourism activities. So it depends on three main factors: the amount of resources available in the in the ecosystem. So we need to assess how much or the amount of resources available in that particular area. The size of population or the number of users. Remember that tourism is only one of the uses in a particular environment, and the amount of resources each individual consumes. So given that three main factors, that would easily reflect the carrying capacity of a certain ecosystem or area. Another is the development of tourism destination must always be guided by a science-based information. Hindi po pwedeng dahil naging trending, na naging na-discover na maganda yung hindi na natin kino-consider yung number of people na kailangan nating i-accommodate. And under Executive Order number 192, this is the effort now of the government, EO 1110 of 1999 and the Republic Act 9593 or Tourism Act of 2009, it emphasizes sustainable tourism. The country must be ensured to facilitate a more consistent methodological and procedural understanding on the concept of conducting a carrying capacity study. It's also serves as a planning tool. It is important in many tourism areas, especially now that they are experiencing threats due to anthropogenic intervention, biodiversity loss, and climate change. It also ensures few and tolerable impacts on natural resources. As much as possible for a sustainable tourism, dapat kung maaari talagang walang impact. If ever magkaroon man ng impact, tolerable at kayang i-offset ng natural resources. There's a need to determine the tourism capacity of a certain site to make its operation sustainable and lasting. aside from providing a steady source of income to local community, it ensures high level of satisfaction for visitors. Prime consideration dito is yung interest din ng local community, yung host community. Kung minsan, nalileft behind o left out yung community dun sa economic activity brought about by the tourism activities. So, with that carrying capacity and sustainable tourism, so there's a need for environmental management. Environmental management is a process, a perspective, and a practical administration tool in managing a human-environment relationship. So, hindi dapat ito naghihiwala yung human activity and the environment. Yung relationship na yun, talagang hindi mapaghihiwala yan. Hindi kailangan na mag-divorce siya. Where managing can be interpreted in different ways, controlling, shaping, organizing, or creating the circumstances for new policies and practices to emerge, especially with the intention of preserving the natural resources. Kasi, nag-generate nga tayo ng income, pero at the expense naman of the environment, which is sayang na kawawa naman yung mga susunod na henerasyon. So, on the part of the government, there are various laws that has been legislated, and there are so many policies that to be considered for environmental management to make the tourism more sustainable. The Clean Air Act, and then the different enumerated environmental laws here. The environmental impact assessment, the Toxics and Substances Hazardous and Nuclear Waste Control Act, the Philippine Clean Air Act, the Solid Waste Management Act, and the Philippine Clean Water Act. So on the within the context of the environmental management. For biodiversity management, there are so many well, this is the bureau within DENR that has mandates on establishing and managing protected areas, conserving wildlife, promoting this institutionalizing ecotourism, managing coastal biodiversity and wetlands ecosystem, caves and cave resources, and information education on biodiversity and nature conservation, so on and so forth. And there are and particularly for ecotourism activity, there is also that Executive Order 111/1999, creating the National Ecotourism Development Council with representation from different government agencies in tourism, in DNR, DLG, DTI, DOF, NEDA, DepEd, and the representative of the private sector or the industry. And within that EO, there's also a within that EO, there's the Regional Ecotourism Committee to effectively implement the programs and activities approved by the council. So to ensure that to ensure the sustainable tourism activities. There's the the Department of Tourism, the DNR, and so on and so forth. The mandate also of the EO is for the formulation of the National Ecotourism Strategy that shall be prepared by the Council to provide an integrated management plan, which shall warrant a comprehensive direction of the future of ecotourism in the country. So the National Ecotourism Strategy defined the initial task of jumpstarting ecotourism awareness and promoting cooperation, seeking the participation of the different branches of the government, the local government, and other stakeholders in the development of ecotourism in the Philippines. So these are also some of the content of the National Ecotourism Strategy and Action Plan, creating conducive environment for ecotourism investment, maximizing economic benefits for the host community, promoting and develop developing a culture of ecotourism, strengthening institutional capacity, developing strengthening partnership, establishing mechanism for sustainable financing and monitoring of outcomes and impacts. In summary, there's a need to preserve and protect a fragile natural sites, wildlife, and ecosystem, and at the same time educate people, all while creating opportunities for livelihood, employment in order to fight poverty. So talagang babalansin po natin dahil one needs the other. You know? Without the natural side, the wildlife and ecosystem, wala rin naman po tayong ma-present for our tourism activities. The government, society, businesses, local organizations around the world have to consider ecological impact and the sociocultural capacities of tourist regions to move forward on issues on tourism sustainability. And the tools to create organizational, ethical, and procedural environmental planning for development of tourism, protecting and supporting of the substantial quality of life in the tourist region, also the quality of tourism experience and service. So, in malinis na I would like to end my presentation by quoting this DENR quality policy. Malinis na kapaligiran at mayamang kalikasan para sa sambayanan. Maraming salamat po.